In the quiet early hours of September 2008, in Lake Forest, California, a tragedy unfolded inside a home that, from the outside, looked perfectly ordinary. But sometimes the darkest storms brew behind the calmest doors. Inside that house was 19-year-old Jacqwelyn Villagomez, a young woman whose smile could brighten rooms the way dawn breaks over the ocean. She was a dreamer, a singer, a runner, a girl who carried hope the way others carry breath. But that night, hope was nowhere to be found. Neighbors would later say they heard raised voices, the kind that sound like thunder before lightning strikes. What happened inside those walls was violent, chaotic, like a storm that decided to fall on one person all at once. Jacqwelyn was brutally beaten, her life slipping away as if someone had grabbed the very light inside her and shattered it like glass. The person responsible wasn't a stranger in the shadows, not a mask-wearing monster from a nightmare, but someone she trusted, someone close, someone who should have protected her, yet instead became her undoing. When the police arrived, responding to the call that sliced through the night, they stepped into a scene that would haunt them, a house drenched in grief, confusion, and blood. Jacqwelyn was still alive, barely, clinging to the thinnest thread of life. Officers rushed her to the hospital, sirens wailing like a desperate prayer. But fate, cruel and indifferent, did not answer. Jacqwelyn Villagomez did not survive, and the world lost a young woman who had fought so hard to belong, to love, and to be loved. Jacqwelyn Joan Villagomez entered the world on May 8, 1995, in Modesto, California, a tiny spark of life wrapped in hope. But destiny, like a cold wind, had a habit of arriving uninvited. In her earliest years, Jacqwelyn was raised by her mother, Jerry Bonnell. Jerry loved her fiercely, like a lion shielding her cub from the world. But life can be crueler than any villain in a tragedy. Jerry passed away from AIDS, leaving Jacqwelyn and her brother suddenly adrift, like two small boats cut loose in a storm. With nowhere else to go, Jacqwelyn and her brother moved in with their grandmother. But instead of warmth, that home felt like walking into winter. Jacqwelyn felt unwanted, like an extra puzzle piece that didn't fit no matter how hard she tried. Every laugh, every shared moment around her seemed to say, "You don't belong." Her heart, too young to understand, learned pain before it learned peace. But just when darkness seemed to stretch on forever, light found her. A woman named Jennifer Johnson stepped in, kind, loving, almost angelic. She held Jacqwelyn with the type of love that felt like sunlight after a year of rain. Jennifer became her second mother, her rescuer, the first person who made her feel chosen instead of tolerated. Jacqwelyn blossomed. She attended Brown Elementary, then Airlock Junior High, and later Pittman High School, where she ran like the wind. Track became her freedom. She shattered records like glass, but she was more than speed. She could sing, dance, play the guitar, and she even dreamed of acting and modeling. Her spirit was wildfire, fast, bright, unstoppable. Life carried her family to Orange County, where she attended Trabuco Hills and El Toro High School. Friends knew her as Jackie, fun-loving, generous, the type of person who could walk into a silent room and make it feel alive again. But trauma leaves fingerprints. Even surrounded by love, Jackie battled quiet storms. Her grief and memories, like ghosts that refused to leave, pushed her towards substance abuse to numb the ache. By 2008, at just 19 years old, Jackie was still chasing dreams, singing at the beach, feeling ocean waves whisper to her. That was where she met John Needham, a decorated soldier, scarred by war. He had survived Baghdad, but Baghdad hadn't left him. He carried PTSD and a traumatic brain injury like invisible chains. Jackie and John saw in each other what most people never do: shared pain. Two broken souls who believed they could fix each other. But love built on wounds can become a battleground. They moved in with John's father, who saw disaster brewing like a storm cloud ready to burst. He was right. Alcohol mixed with prescriptions. Arguments sparked like flames in dry grass. And on September 1st, 2008, everything cracked. That night, after a liquor store run, their last drink together, a whirlwind of jealousy, rage, and chaos unfolded. Jackie packed to leave, only to find John's ex, Renee, at the door. Words flew like knives. A fight erupted. Calls were made. Renee fled. When police arrived, the scene was chilling. John sat on the floor, crying, drenched in blood. Beside him was Jacqwelyn, brutally beaten, still breathing but fading fast. She died shortly after at the hospital. John admitted only one thing. She made me snap, as though her life were a switch he could turn off. He was charged with murder, posted bond, walked her free. The justice Jackie deserved slipped like sand through fingers. Before trial could begin, John, too, died from an overdose of his prescription medication. Whether accident or intention, no one truly knows. His death was ruled undetermined, an ending as unclear and tragic as the life he left behind. In the end, both Jackie and John drowned under the weight of their pain. No courtroom verdict, no closure, only silence. May Jacqueline Joan Villa-Gomez rest in peace, a beautiful soul who deserved a softer world than the one she was given. Here are my analysis of the story. 1. Trauma and early life instability. Jacqueline's childhood was shaped by loss and emotional neglect. The death of her mother left her emotionally vulnerable at a very young age. Living with her grandmother, where she felt unwanted and unloved, likely contributed to long-term emotional wounds. Impact. This instability created deep insecurities and emotional pain that followed her into adulthood. Children who grow up without a stable emotional foundation often struggle with identity, self-worth, and forming safe relationships. 2. Search for belonging and love. When Jennifer Johnson took Jacqueline in, she finally experienced genuine care. However, trauma doesn't just vanish, it lingers. Even with love later in life, Jacqueline still struggled with the emotional scars of her early years. She sought escape in substance use to numb unresolved pain. Theme: she longed for love, but never fully learned how to heal, so the wounds reopened easily. 3. Trauma bonding. When she met the decorated soldier, their connection formed through shared pain, not shared healing. They both had deep trauma, struggled with mental health, and used alcohol and substances as emotional bandages. This is known as a trauma bond, where two people cling to each other because of shared suffering, not stability. Result: what starts as emotional understanding can quickly turn volatile, codependent, and dangerous. 4. Mental health and war trauma. The soldiers suffered PTSD, traumatic brain injury, TBI. These conditions impair emotional control. increased impulsive reactions, and heightened aggression during stress. Combined with alcohol and medication, they create a psychological state where violent behavior becomes more likely. Key insight: untreated war trauma can spiral into self-destruction or harm to others. 5. Cycles of substance abuse. Both Jacqwelyn and the soldier were using substances to cope. Alcohol and prescription medication escalated emotional instability and lowered rational control. When substance abuse overlaps with mental illness, past trauma, relationship conflict, it becomes a high-risk environment for violence. 6. Escalation to violence. The argument the night of the incident was not isolated. It was the climax of emotional instability, codependency, substance fuel, unresolved trauma, mental health deterioration. Violence became the breaking point. 7. Systemic failure. There were multiple points where intervention could have prevented the tragedy. Lack of continuous mental health support for returning soldiers. Limited trauma recovery support for children with unstable childhoods. Failure to recognize dangerous codependent relationships. Society did not catch either of them when they were falling. 8. Aftermath and irony. The soldier never made it to trial. He later died from an overdose, leaving no legal accountability, no closure for Jacqwelyn's loved ones, only unanswered questions. Irony. Both Jacqwelyn and the soldier died not only from violence and tragedy, but from the same root cause: unhealed trauma. Overall message: this story highlights the devastating consequences when trauma is not healed, mental health is not supported, substance abuse goes unchecked, pain chooses pain as a partner. It is a story not just of loss, but of how suffering can echo, repeat, and return if never addressed.